Hello and welcome. You're listening to Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network, our weekly podcast where we analyze the latest in advertising, marketing, customer behavior, and new product launches. I'm Barbara Kahn, the Patty and J.H. Baker Professor of Marketing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Americus Reed, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Professor of Marketing and the Brand Identity Theorist. Hello, Americus.
Hi, Barbara. Okay, so I was pondering this, and of course, what we do at the Wharton School often is to think about the important case studies of iconic brands that can teach us about the wisdom of staying relevant over time. And I got to tell you, I was recently giving a talk, a keynote, and I wore these shoes. I'll show them to you briefly.
Ooh,
Ooh.
nice.
And I got to tell you, I got all kinds of compliments. So I need to know, and by the way, I'm going to put a quote out there to sort of kick us off here. There's a difference between timeless and timeliness. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what have you got? If I want to learn about this venerable company, what have you got for me today, Barbara Kahn?
So you're talking about the famous company Adidas, although a lot of people here say Adidas, but I believe it's pronounced rightly Adidas. And that is a brand that has been around for a while and is never more relevant today than it was in the past. And in order to talk about all of that, we have with us the Vice President of Marketing for Adidas Originals, Basketball, and Partnerships, Annie Barrett. Hello, Annie. Welcome to our show.
Hello, Barbara and Americus. Thank you for having me. And Americus, I honestly also brought a shoe beside me, so now
I love it.
I feel
Okay,
like
let's bookend this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bookend.
I
Can
didn't
we?
know we were having a shoe party. I have my
Yes,
own upstairs.
Yes. I love this brand, and I am so excited, Annie, to learn everything. We're going to absorb your knowledge. So we are super excited, as Barbara was saying.
Yeah. I do wish I had my my shoe with me, but I do have one upstairs. But anyway, what we wanted to talk about, Annie, is your new campaign, Superstar the Original. Can you tell us like the motivation for the campaign, and then we can get into it? I have to say, I watched that spot. I don't know, Americus, if you
Wow.
awesome. If you haven't seen this spot, you
Goosebumps.
have to go on YouTube immediately and see it.
You
But
have
why
to.
don't you give us the background for it?
Oh, I'd love to. Honestly, you both are just making me smile ear to ear, and you know how you're speaking about it as well, because that's how I feel about the campaign genuinely. So, yeah, I'd love to talk you through the what and the why. And actually, for us as Adidas Originals, you know, the last couple of years we've been on a bit of a journey overall to really kind of set out and define who we are authentically and make sure we show up authentically, even internally first, to then make sure when we go out into the world, we're being authentic to our consumers. So we've been on a bit of a journey. And with that, we've really lent into the fact that we are a sport brand. And we've lent in and been proud that we were born for sport. And then for Originals, we've been super proud around how we've made our way into many subcultures all around the world. And so when we set out with this campaign for Superstar, although Superstar's a shoe, we really wanted to lean into it. It's so much more than just a shoe. And we wanted to portray and relive the journey from sport to culture, because it's actually a shoe that was made for basketball, truly to be played on the basketball courts. And it was made in the late 60s and it was worn on basketball, on NBA players all throughout the 70s. And it's actually at the time was a crazy innovation and new innovation. Basketball players at the time they were wearing canvas shoes, and Adidas came in. Americus knows. I feel like maybe he's a basketball fan. You know, was wearing canvas.
Yes.
And actually, Adidas came in and actually looked at it and said, we need to make something that works best for the athlete. And that's where we were the first company to make a leather performance shoe. But there's so much more to it. And that's why I had the shoe, because within the design and when people look at the shoe of the Superstar, there's so much to it, like the shell toe here, the shell toe at the top. It's to protect the toes, right? And the sole was the grip on the core, and then the leather was to be durable. So it was so innovative of its time, and it was so precious. But actually, the journey it then took is what we really love at Adidas Originals. through the 80s, it was adopted in hip hop and music with Run-DMC, iconic. In the 90s, it took its way into grunge and into
Let me
skate.
just stop you on
Yeah,
all of that, and let's,
yeah,
like, unpack
I
some
know
of that.
my mind
yeah,
is
good.
exploding because
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
so incredible.
Like, I wanna, like, just and Americus, weigh in whenever you want. Interrupt me galore, it's fine. But I'm trying to understand this. You started out as a basketball shoe, and you were showing us the shoe to show us why it was so good on the basketball court. But then you started talking about the cultural influence it had. So how did that happen? Was it organic? Did it happen because you thought to make, your company thought to push it that way? How exactly did that move from one to the next world?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question because it was organic. It truly was organic. Run DMC literally pointed to this shoe and, they would say in their own words, growing up in New York, it was a durable shoe. It was a durable shoe that you could clean super easy. So they actually picked it up and wore it, without, us interfering in that way. And that was what was so beautiful about that kind of shift from sport directly into hip hop. And then from that point, it took many different worlds of its own. So yeah, super cool.
So when I don't know if you were at the company then or you just know the history, but so when you get that lucky break, that move, is there something the company does to capitalize on it? Or just from a marketing point of view, that sounds great that it was adopted organically, but I would imagine you'd want to build on that also. And certainly in this updated campaign, you want to build on all of that. So can you talk a little bit about the marketing implications of that move from one world to the next?
For sure. And honestly, I think for us, it really did define collaborations.
Yeah.
And moving our sport product into culture and defining a true partnership. And we did sign a deal with Run DMC, but kind of after the fact and after the fact they'd
Mm.
won it. So that really was a pioneering step for us to kind of, you know, listen and see that they naturally adopted us, but then have a conversation and say, well,
Yes.
how else do we want to work together?
Right.
And that then, yeah, for sure
Yes.
became the start of true collaborations and
Excellent.
longer term partnerships and contracts and deals. And now from where we sit today, it's such a vital part of
Yeah.
what we do. We're always trying to invite people into our brand, to collaborate, to share, to give us inspiration. And our ambition is keep pushing us forward, help
Hmm.
keep push us forward as a brand. So yeah, super, super cool, super interesting. And I wasn't around then. But I love geeking out on it all.
Yeah.
And I could keep going, but I'll stop at that point.
Yeah, Americus, I'm sure you're aching to say something. So I'm just going to set up my next one, but I'm going to let you to do it. So I love the fact that you weren't around, that you're looking at it, and now you have to have a modern uptake on it. And I'm curious about that. But I know Americus is just biting his tongue, hoping to say stuff. So let me give him the opportunity.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I do want you to address that point, Annie, that Barbara was making. But I also want to I point out to you, Barbara, the how impressive this was because it cannot be overstated the coolness of the earlier partnerships way back in the day, as Annie was talking about. Because if you really studied the hip hop community, you understood that there at that moment at least there was this sort of pushback against sort of corporations and there was a purity around the art form and people were very protective of the art. So there was no way back in those early days, Barbara, that companies could just come in and connect inauthentically. It wasn't going to happen because the artist would say, I'm basically selling
Uh-huh.
out. I'm basically not pure. I'm not, this is not real. And so that's what for me is like super duper duper impressive about this. But I love your point. I want to connect those two dots, Annie.
Yep.
Barbara's point about stepping in with fresh eyes to be able to look at this, but also pulling forward the cultural iconicness and the authenticity of those brand moments that were early on in Adidas DNA, how those things are coming together to sort of set the stage for what you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, that's where, our inspiration was pulled. And then when we were looking at this campaign, it was for sure, we don't want to tell a history story, but how do we give a nod and point to the cues of its journey from sport into the different subcultures that I mentioned? And that's where we kind of thought around, okay, what's the message we want to put out here? And it was two parts. The first one was we do want to show we truly believe we have the most iconic sneaker in the industry, and it is the original icon. And without just pointing to the shoe, we want to have a lineup and a cast of partners who really represent being an original icon in their field. And so that then led to the cross pollination of the cast that led with people from basketball, from skate, in hip hop, and in music. So we kind of reinterpreted the journey it's been on into a more contemporary vision and creative and story without just pushing the direct product story in everyone's faces. So yeah.
So how did you choose the people you chose? Like, did you choose them? Did they choose you?
It was a collaboration, and we have a really incredible sports marketing team and culture marketing team that we name internally, who look after all of our partners. And we work together to say, look, here's the vision, here's the type of personality that we want to pull through. And an icon, someone who walks in a room and has that aura and authentically connects to our brand. And that is what then led to the likes of Missy Elliott, an absolute Don, a pioneer, authentic connections to the brand, which was super important too.
Yep.
With Jenny from Blackpink, she's been a partner of ours for a good few years now.
Yes.
Anthony Edwards, such a Don right now in basketball, and such a personality. Again, he definitely has that aura of being an icon,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So it kind of then started to craft from the story, the feeling we wanted to portray, and then who can help us tell that story. And then that, of course, led to us pointing to the ultimate Don of Mr. Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I heard.
Yes. Yes, yes.
I was
Now,
wondering when you're gonna mention him. He's kind of a star in the
he's a
spot.
big star. He is a big star. Yes. I
He-
want to just, I got the memo that Adidas might be looking for an icon in the identity theorist marketing professor in Philadelphia space.
Yes.
So I just want to put this out there, Annie. I'm available. I'm available for a conversation. Now,
Americus, I'll be calling you. I will be calling you.
in all seriousness, though, I want to return back quickly to something you said at the earlier part of the interview that just stuck with me in my mind. And you said building the brand internally, building the brand internally. Can you speak on this? Because I feel like this is a not often appreciated aspect of creating the brand strategy, because the idea being that if the people in the building and the four walls of the building aren't buying into the DNA, it's going to be much more difficult to have that authenticity ripple out to the marketplace. So can you talk about how Adidas creates that strong, deep, sort of internalized culture with the company, within the company?
For sure. And I've been at the brand 15 years. So and I genuinely love it. I love the three stripes. I love the feeling it brings to you. And actually it's for me, as well as with my team, I would say 2.5 years ago, as I kind of stepped into this space and role that I'm in now, the first thing I did was I brought everyone together and I said, I want you to bring something in that reminds you of why you love working for Adidas Originals. Because it just, and honestly, the memories that people bring up, whether it's their dad's first soccer cleat, or it is like a magazine they bought when they were young, and all of these memories that remind you of, like, why do you love the brand? And we say internally, like, if you don't love the brand and what it represents, how on earth can you persuade the consumers to love the brand of what it represents? So again, just personally for me, it was super important, and it was literally work that we did to say, let's make sure we know what Adidas Originals stand for. And one other just insight is actually we also did a kind of workshop internally with many different groups to say, what are the two words also that come front of mind when you think about Adidas Originals? And actually, the language our internal team used became a lot of our statements of intent, which was super cool. And two keywords that came out, which relates to this campaign as well, was timeless pioneers.
You know what's so interesting about what you're what you're saying is I teach a luxury course and I think about European luxury. And to me, what you're describing is very much in keeping with these iconic European luxury brands, where it is about the legacy, the history, the original. And it's really important to get within that ethos and not make comparisons and not think about all these other things. Just think about what that brand means to you. And that has worked for 200 years for the European luxury brands. And I think it's a different perspective than we typically see in this space in the US. So it feels kind of iconic and European to me. Is that fair or do you think I'm reading into it?
No, I do think it's fair, and we've had many conversations as well internally around do you rely too much on the heritage, and how do you keep pushing forward? And again, it's totally twofold, isn't it? It is like, well, our magic power is also our archive, and people would love to have to be able to delve into an archive and then push it forward to today. And again, I think the super important part is the juxtaposition between the two of being timeless, but yet pioneering. You have to keep pushing forward, and I do think the inspiration of being a European brand, but then still having the edge to cut through in the US too is vital as well, because you can't just sit as a European brand at the same time.
Absolutely, it
Yeah,
has to be more than that, but it
yeah.
does give you something special in your DNA that is really uniquely yours because you are in a very competitive space, although you don't get that feeling from any of your marketing. You feel like you're the only one, and which is great, but truth of the matter is it is quite a competitive area, and so, like, this gives you a unique differentiation, I think.
It does, and that's it is super important to you can get caught up, right, for sure, in what's happening in the industry and in all the different spaces. But at the heart of it, kind of goes back to, internally, do you love working for the brand and do you know what we represent? And then make sure you hold on to that special sauce externally too. But yeah, so it's super exciting, and we applied it to this campaign directly.
That's incredible. I also want to just touch upon this point that you made, Annie, with respect. I love this. Can I just first of all,
No, it feels you feel
I
like
just
you're in, like,
listen,
some kind
every
of a
day it's a
golden
parade.
space.
I just get to talk to smart people and just be inspired. I'm standing over here in my, in my house with goosebumps listening to all of this.
Yeah, it
But
feels like you're special.
I love the idea of and this is relating back to Barbara's question, Annie, about how do you pick these icons?
Mm.
And when you read that list off, what immediately jumped to my mind is as soon as you read the name, I could literally picture the film, the song, the thing that they did first that you'd never seen before. And it was like, so iconic means that, yeah, we don't follow, we're not following. It's what you said in the commercial. We're not following time. We set it. Oh, we
Oh,
set time. Okay, I gotta calm down here. But the point being, the point being that I love that DNA, Barbara, that notion of doing things that create creative, but yet also it's built on a legacy, a very clearly articulated DNA, all of those different things. And to me, that's the magic of marketing. When those things come together in a beautiful, authentic way, it just creates so much power and so much inspiration for not only consumers but professors of marketing who are out here trying to understand how can I take a little bit of this wisdom, bring it into the classroom, and describe to our marketing students, this is why we brand, because it creates, like Barbara was saying, all of this additional stuff that really protects us when other competitors try to show up and claim they've got the same thing. So I love that point. I want to give you kudos for that. Your track suit is on fire. This is awesome. You probably get to wear this every day, which is a beautiful thing. Barbara, what else what else is percolating on your mind, Barbara?
Well, what I'm thinking about is as you're describing this amazing brand, this legacy brand, this original, but now you're like you said, it's modern, and so you've created this wonderful spot that people can see, but I'm sure there's other things you're doing to support this campaign. So, what else, just getting into some of the brass tacks of it, how do you take this beautiful idea and take it out into execution?
for sure. And Americus, I love that you know the script, because I could read that script of clocks over and over again from
Oh,
the spot, know it by heart, and I could do a
Good stuff.
whole section just on Mr. Samuel Jackson too, because he was absolutely incredible. But to your point, Barbara, it is, it's more than just a film, and it was more than just that one spot and that one piece of rollout. And kind of what we look at is there's three areas that we drive through with the team. So it is, the first one is, how do we continue to drive equity in Adidas Originals? And that is that everything we've talked about so far. How are you distinct? How are you consistent? How are you, Adidas Originals authentically? And then the second part is, and how are we driving true credibility, right? And that actually is more around grassroots and working with all our different markets all around the world and going, how do you take this idea of original icons within your spaces? And that then led to many continued elements of the campaign, from local partners, local events. It was all about putting up and coming musicians on a big stage,
Mhm.
celebrating that. It was all about ensuring that the markets were equipped with everything they need to take the identity and land it consistently in their markets. So we still felt like one holistic brand, even though markets could really delve into the story in their way. So again, we kind of talk around, how do you act like a big brand, but then be truly intimate as well, like a
That
smaller
actually
brand.
sounds daunting to me. When you
Yes.
start saying all that, like, I can see creating, in some sense, the art, the brand, but then to execute it around the world in all these local markets and bringing all these different people, I mean, that sounds like a headache. I mean, really hard to do flawlessly.
It's huge. It's a huge task. It is for sure. And but we work so intimately with every market, and we're a bit like a well-oiled machine now at this point, right? We bring them on the journey from our creative concept in with the market, so they can again fall in love with where we're going, and we share with them, here are the partners that we're working with. So it's a journey, a long journey we go on with the markets, and then at some point there's trust in the markets, right? You run and now you execute it. And so it is a daunting task, because we're a global brand with every country in the entire world that executed this campaign. But I do think what has helped us is that we had quite a distinct point of view, clear creative direction, clear intent. We brought all the markets along in the process, and then we were able to execute it really wonderfully. And yeah, just kudos to all the markets as well for jumping on it. And then the third pillar to the first two is obviously then how do you make sure then people feel compelled to then want to put superstars on their feet and feel confident in putting them on their feet. So the business side of it too, right? So equity, credibility. Okay, now how do we drive business off the back of all of the incredible work we've done? So that's how we take it, just from one campaign spot and then pull it all the way through the markets. And even, I mean, we were super intentional too around the rollout. Because the first spot that dropped was just Samuel Jackson with a script that related to pyramids, which was so random, right? It sounds quite very random. Why are we talking about pyramids when we're meant to be selling superstars? But again, it was the beauty around giving a nod to a wonder of the world. And
Yeah,
Yes.
originals, right.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, the
and
metaphor of clocks, as Americus mentioned, that I love that idea,
oh
the
yeah, and
timelessness of
Fox
that.
was incredible. So yeah, that's how we took it and we expanded it again all around the world, every country. And yeah, super proud of what the team and every team around the world have done.
Yeah, well, Annie, uh,
We're letting it all sink in, and it's
yeah,
just like
it's like
I just have. I'm
yeah,
gonna have to, when the podcast drops, I'm gonna watch this 100 times, because
yeah, well,
there's
yeah,
so much
keep
in here.
going.
There's so much to share with our students, and so much really cool wisdom. I love the idea, to Barbara's point. She said it was daunting, and she's 100% correct. This idea of trying to bring things together, yeah, historic icon, but also pioneering. A large brand that has scale, but also personalized and identity relevant. So this is just
For me,
incredible
and
stuff.
also the idea that it's a basketball shoe, it's a functional shoe that's moved into all of these different cultural realms and, speaks to identity, um, just kind of amazing. Well, Annie, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can our listeners go to watch this spot, to find out about this campaign, find out about you?
Oh, for sure. They can, well, definitely hit up our social channels for Adidas and Adidas Originals and our TikTok channels and all that good stuff. And then obviously Adidas.com will have the whole shebang on there too. So please go watch. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of it, and I still love watching it. And then if you want to catch me, LinkedIn, try find me on there. Happy to connect, and yeah, appreciate you both. It's been really wonderful and warm, and really love chatting to you both.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. That's all we have time for today. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Till then, this has been Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network. I'm Barbara Kahn here with Americus Read.